So warmly welcome to the 51 episode on SAP on Azure YouTube session with Robert and Holger. It's where we will talk about the newest stuff, what we have on SAP on Azure. We have a new and old guest, Martin Pankraz. So warm welcome. Robert, it's 51. We just last week we turned to 50. It's a big.
And what is very important, we are not celebrating 51 now starting without Holger. Holger is well-deserved vacation, so right. It's not that it's not here because we don't like him. Yeah. No, he's just on well-deserved vacation. And I think this is the first time that we have a session without Holger. It is amazing how much energy he really bring to this series. And as you mentioned, we are just going in next steps. We have many new sessions planned together. So Martin, welcome again. So and this just show how we are from Azure side. We are going very aggressively together with SAP topics. So we are not stopping. We are just introducing new stuff. Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah. So let's first go through the what's new. What was new happening during the last week. So let me just quickly share the screen. Interestingly, there was a Microsoft Inspire conference. Robert, these are your guys. It's for the partners, right?
This partner in general, very important partner conference. Mm-hmm. And there's always session. Many topics are there. We are announcing also how we are changing the partner initiatives and collaboration in the next fiscal year. And there's a very nice announcement there. But I think Goran, you already find some very nice sessions also related to SAP topics.
Exactly. So basically, if you go here, so that was the last week, 3 days. If you just search for SAP, there are a few of them. Interesting. I checked or looked this winning customer to SAP Azure with Intel. It was basically a joint session with the Intel. There was guys from Microsoft, Ranjit and Margaret, and Brian and Sari from Intel. Interesting actually to think that the biggest number of the VMs are on Intel. Although we have an AMD. HANA is from SAP only certified so far only on Intel CPU, and they are kind of they brought some kind of a bit interesting topics basically about this persistent memory on HANA large instance, basically which kind of reduce the downtime. On Optane, right? Exactly. On the Optane, that was one very just a refresher there. It is a business continuity topic, because it's downtime matters. They were also talking about reducing the prices for this. So TCO overall reduction generally important for everybody. And they were also talking about different, both Microsoft and Intel are working jointly, of course, and there are those kind of partner and customer funding programs, different programs, which also coming from both companies, which helps especially with those bigger deals. So very kind of interesting. People can take a look. Yeah.
Persistent memory is always like a paradoxon to me, because the nature of RAM was always it's gone if the electricity is gone.
And that's interesting. Because with this persistent memory, typically if something is rebooted, HANA is in memory. When you start it, you need to load from the disk to the memory huge amount of data. We talk about terabytes of RAM, and disk, no matter how fast they are, it takes time, right? So until
it's always challenge the scalability. You go vertical or horizontal, Right. So Optane is something in between, trying to solve this challenge, because if you're going always vertical, it's okay. It's hardware is going better and better, but it's also from pricing perspective not attractive. So Optane is somehow trying to address that and try to solve that. And of course, you always have this horizontal scale out. So this is somehow, you see, we are going somewhere in between in the future to optimize that we are not always going vertical, because it's always too expensive if we are just going straight to up.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's very interesting stuff. Just to refresh this. On some, I mean, I would say more important announcement about the support Azure Shared Disk. Basically, it's supported not only in a premium, but also on the standard one, which are of course cheaper, but also at the smaller sizes from 4 GB to 128 GB are also kind of supported. And these kind of stuff will also come. We talk about the local redundant shared disk, which is basically supported for SAP Central Services on Windows cluster. Zonal redundant shared disk is also in the preview, which means for the zonal HA scenario, somebody calls DR. But these stuff will be also available then on the ZRS.
Here is stated that this zone redundant is already part of this general availability or not, or is maybe.
I think this not yet. I mean, you can. It's still a preview, public preview, okay, as far as I know. But it's a customer in a different region, but customer can try it, already can try it. And actually, honestly, it's a and that's interesting stuff. I was testing also on the Windows ASCS cluster on Windows clustering on Windows cluster with zonal redundant shared disk. When I use the current documentation, which talks about the local redundant shared disk, and is using the PowerShell actually to create the disk and attach the disk to the VMs, there's the only difference is in one line where you say it's not local redundant shared disk, but it's zonal redundant shared. That's it. Yeah. Everything else is the same, which is great. It's nice. So really, I would expect also from our side, SAP engineering should not take much time just to officially publish it when we reach the GA and give an SAP support statement. Another important topic, Robert, you can talk about more about. I mean, this Azure monitoring for SAP, which we already have it, right? I mean,
exactly. Yeah. So we discussed about this option that we actually collecting, let's say like that, collecting the data. The metrics, not just metrics, we are collecting the data from HANA and SAP NetWeaver logs and somehow bring them to Azure Analytics workspace. And of course, then we are using Power from for Azure Log Analytics to create interesting dashboard, analyzing board books and so on and so on. This is very important because now then customer can have a one way of one dashboard to see what is happening across not just infrastructure as a service perspective from Azure perspective, but also what is happening on SAP landscape. And now we are announcing is public preview that we are actually announcing this support for alerts for already existing Peacemaker clusters and SAP a set of data. And second announcement is private preview is going direction that we are actually collecting more from NetWeaver telemetry. So we are collecting much more information than before. And of course, combining with those announcements with alerts, it's providing huge opportunity for all partners, for all customers to really use native Azure monitoring tool in combination with infrastructure and plus on what is happening on a NetWeaver or SAP landscapes. And this is amazing because, you can combine the SLA calculators, you can combine the RPO, RTO calculators to see, okay, is everything fitting your expectation from that perspective? But also when you try to monitor and somehow to see what is happening in your complete landscape, it's amazing what you can do with this as Azure Monitor for SAP.
Yeah. So basically, when you see here new telemetry, and they're talking about really internal stuff of the ABAP, which is SMON table. I mean the basic one. ST's Uppsala. I click something wrong.
ST's
03. ST03 and Shodan. So basically, these are really the standard tool what the SAP Basis guy would use it, and to get them, I mean, they're telling, okay, it's through the RFC, of course, through the RFC, you would connect to the SAP ABAP part. You can bring it in and do whatever you like. I mean, the alerting, it's a second step. First, you collect them, and then, of course, you need alerting mechanism to define what.
This example is a very nice example when we are, in most cases when we are discussing about migration to Azure, SAP guys SAP basic guys say, this is not my job. But this is a very nice example that you see how jobs are changing, that you will get more and more interesting responsibility in a cloud, because you have much more flexibility, not just to create complete landscapes, but you also have much more flexibility to control what is running there. And this is a very nice example of that.
And especially there's always this end-to-end, going through the different steps, it's always challenging, right, to collect end-to-end information. And this is the direction, the good direction.
Also the opportunity to bring together the people on the IT side who are running Azure and those people who are SAP basis.
Exactly.
SAP basis will probably still use the SAP native monitoring, but this is now then the the bridge between both worlds, so that we can get more insights.
Yeah, exactly. And this one pane of glass is a holy cow for everybody. Having something on one screen where you have an overview. Many basically are asking for something like this. Yeah. So again, here this is the private preview, and for those features you can register it and try it. Just try it. Yeah, it's always good to be first one to test it. Now, maybe just the last part. There was two interesting blog from two parts of the same topic from Bartosz. So I think he just published it relatively.
I think the second part was yesterday, the first part was last week.
Exactly, yeah, that's why I was confused. So basically, he's talking about the Azure Synapse, right? So which is a kind of the Microsoft. I think he has there is also an architectural picture. It's a Microsoft analytics service with integration with also reporting, with possibility to merge the different sources, right, and to melt them into one. He's talking about the different 90 connectors which are existing. Of course, for SAP, typically it's an RFC. For BW, it's an MDX. But basically, he's also using an OData, right, which is a kind of also very popular, very generic one. Fiori is also using it, and he's making really a detailed step-by-step approach how you can configure this and how you can connect. So basically, he's extracting through the SAP as well, and he's also putting from other sources. It's really very long and very detailed step-by-step in the first blog, and then he said, okay, in the second one he went it actually even further and talking about flexibility, how through those input parameters you can kind of flexible create or configure those connectors without duplicating of the code, so to say. That's the whole story, making short, right? And there are those kind of through those also pipeline. You can also he's replacing basically dynamically or building those URL links to dynamically pass the correct stuff, and then he's having two different scenarios, so to say, just as an example. For example, I think he's mentioning, okay, I want to get, let me just go down. He's telling, okay, I want to get the sales data or maybe the business data, right, from the same old data. So how to configure it in an easy way without exactly sales order and business partner. He would throw the same old data. So it's a very, very long and detailed, very nice kind of described. And that's interesting because here is also this Holger's most beloved topic as well as Martin, and it's a good transfer to the Martin topic and this business integration actually. And we are come to this Martin blog and BTP and the Azure Private Link, right? So maybe Martin, you wanna share the screen, and maybe for the bigger audience, just tell a bit what is an SAP business BTP platform and what it has to do with Azure, so to say. For most of guys like myself, which is more kind of the background guide, maybe just to clear it, demystify the whole topic, right?
For the demystifying, I'm not sure if the timeline that we set today is going to suffice. Yeah, but in general,
politics till end.
Yeah.
In general, the more known name, or at least because it was there for before, yes, the SAP Cloud Platform. Basically, SAP's platform as a service environment, yeah, which is primarily advertised as the way to go for your extensions, yeah. So especially as S4 and the mantra to keep the core clean, yeah, so that SAP's upgrades and everything that goes along with updates, yeah, that this goes smoothly and it's not disrupted by any custom changes that you did as a customer to the system, which were not anticipated. Yeah? And especially also the environment, the PaaS environment matures quicker, yeah, than something that you do on premises. And this is then your extension platform, yeah, so to say.
But this PaaS service from SAP is also running on Azure.
Exactly, yeah. So
right.
we are one of the providers where you can run it, and since we have a close partnership, we are also developing services together, yeah. And one of those results, yeah, of the partnership is this new service that we're going to talk about in detail today, the Private Link Service on BTP, which leverages our standard managed Private Link Service on Azure.
Right. So basically the idea is, okay, I have a PaaS service, which is an integration hub, so to say, and then you can connect it to a backend SAP system, right? Which is somewhere behind 1,000 firewalls in a different network, not accessible directly by the BTP network, right? So in the past, there was this SAP Cloud Connector, if I can remember, I mean, as a way to safely connect it, right? So how that worked, so to say, and what the customer should do. Yeah.
Let me share my whiteboard so that we will go through it then. So screen number 2, I think.
Yep, you have it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, made a small preparation. Yeah, so on the top left, we have the customer network with typically something like a DMZ where you would put your internet-facing proxy systems. Yeah, and back in the day when there was only SAP Cloud Platform, now today called Business Technology Platform, you needed a secure way to integrate with it. Yeah? So if you have a service here, which typically was something like a Fiori app, how do you allow the Fiori app to consume data from your ECC or S4 system down here? Yeah? And either you would go through here, yeah, which would require you to open some ports, yeah, and actually open up your network, yeah, which you actually want to protect, yeah. And to avoid this,
somebody wants to do it, right?
Yes, yes. And to avoid that, SAP developed a connection component, which they call SAP Cloud Connector. Which you then install on a VM, on your web dispatcher VM, yeah. So you need to put it somewhere, yeah. Either existing workload or create a new one. And this then is able to route through your proxy. Yeah, there's like dedicated settings for that to actually open a channel towards the SAP Cloud Platform. Maybe let me put it like this, so that you get a managed way of working with this. Yeah. And because the Cloud Connector is opening the connection, you don't need to open your network to the outside world. Yeah?
Right. Yeah.
So it's he's just tunneling communication between two endpoints, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But still, that involves a lot of configuration, right, and operational.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the topics. Yeah. So the Cloud Connector now becomes your single point of failure. The only way to communicate with SAP Cloud Platform. So then they put the option to have a shadow instance of the Cloud Connector. Yeah. So you have a second VM, and they have a heartbeat between those two to check which one is alive and then reroute traffic when needed.
So shadow would be a second VM. Let's say if that would run in Azure, that would be another second VM, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Which you need to operate it, patch it, run all the time, and then.
Yeah, all the upgrades, and there's also there's nice Java stuff also going on with it. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. And what happened then? This is the standard way of integrating with SAP Cloud Platform, or Business Technology Platform, the new name. Yeah. This was then lifted and shifted to Azure as well. Yeah. So if we say this down here is now your extended network on Azure, so you actually put all of those components also here. Yeah. So you're on Azure, but you would still use the Cloud Connector to connect to their cloud platform. Yeah. And then our engineering teams sat together and said, okay, this up here, this is Azure. Yeah. This here is Azure too. Yeah. And there's native means to connect this privately. Yeah. Since it's the same platform, it's our technology, we can simply use our private endpoint technology to connect those two.
And basically on the two sides, there are different VNets, which cannot out of the box, which are isolated out of the box from each other, right?
Yeah. Not just that, because all those endpoints are public endpoints, yeah? And you communicate over public endpoints for something which is really private internal. So
correct.
It's working. Yeah, you can encrypt it and everything. SAP Cloud Connector is making everything safe, but it's still a challenge from a configuration perspective. And of course, from security perspective, it's also one challenge.
Yeah, it's going to the public endpoint. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And the Cloud Connector has built-in things like the certificates for the principal propagation, which is also a rather important topic, because you need to be able to map users in your cloud environment. They might also be authenticated with Azure AD, for instance. Yeah? Mm-hmm. How do you make sure that they can be mapped to the SAP backend user? Yeah? So if you have Goran at Microsoft.com, but your SAP user might be I12345. Yeah? How do you make sure that those are the same people? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And those are functionalities that you also have in the Cloud Connector. Yeah? So that's why it will still be relevant for some topics, even though we are also working on principal propagation topics with OAuth server, etc., to make that work with the private link. Yeah?
Okay.
So that shall be it for the whiteboard. Let's go back then to the blog post. Share screen one.
Gwen, yeah.
There we go. So that's the drawing that I created. So on the left, you have your customer VNet in Azure. And in this case, I put there an S4 system, but it doesn't have to be that. Yeah. So anything that SAP that you can install for SAP backend systems in a VM could be your target. Yeah.
Right.
So that involves ECC. That could be PIPO. Yeah. All of those systems. Yeah?
But basically, Azure Private Link is something which exists independently of the SAP, and basically enables you to create a secure tunneling between the two different VNets through the Azure backbone. So again, what Robert was telling, not going over the public internet, right?
Yeah. Right. Because your public service will not use the public IP facing endpoint. It will take the IP from your private network and use that IP from private network to communicate safely with actually managed services on app, but they are not going over public IPs anymore. So they're going over your dedicated network segment.
And plus, it's because it's a Microsoft backbone. Performance is also there, or definitely that would be I would expect a positive influence there. If you go through the public network, public internet, depends from where you go, right?
Yeah, definitely. There might be scenarios outside maybe of Europe, Germany, Amsterdam, where this becomes more relevant. Yeah, but in general, I would say yes. Yeah.
You have here 2 regions, but it's just example. It can be 1 region, of course. Yeah.
Actually, the public beta of this BTP Private Link Service supports only West EU.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is the setup which will be become like interesting and probably also needed going forward, because we have many customers who actually run their SAP system not in West Europe and Europe.
Right.
Okay.
So it's basically just for now SAP decision to say, okay, Azure West EU should be the region to deploy BTP, right?
Well, yeah, at the moment that's where it's available. Yeah, so all BTP services on Azure need to be in West Europe, and but if you open a private link to North Europe, there's also cross-region cost. Yeah, so there's So for now, this is on the supported setup is West EU to West EU. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but this blog is like envisioning what's happening after the public preview. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a scenario for European customers, and you have the equivalent in the US with East and West US, and in other regions too. Yeah, where the region pair is something where this becomes interesting, because your subsystem might be in a different region than the BTP. Yeah?
Okay. So when you mention the price, is this both part? What I need to pay extra here? Okay, traffic, I understand it, but what this private link is also free, or?
Well, the service private link service is free. Yeah, the BTP private link service is like part of your like cloud consumption that you agreed with BTP or with SAP. Yeah, when you bought it.
Right.
Yeah, for instance, with RISE, it's part of the bundle, where you get BTP with a certain amount that you can consume. Yeah? Okay, so then we talked about the private IP. Yeah, so on my shared environment in BTP, I'm now able to connect privately through the managed service. Yeah, that was already there. Like you said, this is not like specific to SAP, but it's like leveraged by them. Yeah, so they developed a service endpoint themselves, which can then integrate those 2 underlying Azure VNets together. Yeah? And then we have finally a standard load balancer, which is required for the Azure Private Link Service, which can then distribute your traffic to your system. Yeah? So this could be then a pool of web dispatchers, for instance, and this gets you then to the actual backend. Yeah? So far, so good. Shall we look at some implementation details?
Yeah.
So I deployed here my private link service, and the first thing that you then need to do in order to connect with BTP is to check your resource ID here. Yeah. And when you go to the cloud platform or the business technology platform nowadays, you can then search for the private link service, and if your entitlements are set up, so that you're allowed to use this, you can start deploying it from here. And when you start doing that, okay, expressions expired. Okay. It's going to ask you doesn't like my name. The space dev. Okay. It's going to ask you for the resource ID, and then at this point you start the coupling. Yeah. So in here you feed from the private link service your resource ID, and then you type a message so that you can identify who's doing this. Yeah. Go around asking for private link, please.
Under any cost.
And then you start this creation process, and then it will finally show up here in the awaiting approval state, and then you can approve the connection.
So basically, you use the UI on both sides without any need to deploy some VMs and configure it inside. Basically, just a portal experience. on two
Exactly.
sides. Yeah.
Well, if you want to get techie, you can also do this with the CLI, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
But it's interesting in general. That's very important because from security perspective, so still on the end you can do it if you have permission, but still additional step is that someone need to approve that and say yes, you have a right to establish connection from two endpoints. That's good. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this gets you your connection. I already have one. So let's go there. Let's put that one. And to actually get your private IP address mentioned, you need to first bind it to any application that you have. And through that binding process, that triggers the creation. And once you're then happy, you get your private IP mentioned here.
So that's the
private is from network in my SAP landscape, correct?
No, if we look here.
Private is here, yeah.
From this
BTP,
side. Okay.
BTP.
Okay. I get it. Okay.
Yeah. And with this, you can start actually using your connectivity service to send traffic down that route. Yeah. And if we check now my private link service, so this is running its own network infrastructure here, and the load balancer, which is associated with this, has a backend pool, and here I have various systems assigned. Yeah, so everything that comes in through that private IP needs to be sent somewhere. Yeah. We have the there's background noise gone. So in our case, what we are testing now is these. I'm sending this against my S4 system, where we have a couple of web dispatchers. Yeah, and actually my load balancer is doing round robins with this web dispatchers to reach the S4 system. Yeah? And my and the load balancing rule here is taken my source port, and on my connection on cloud platform goes against the standard SSL port, but my SSL port on the SAP backend, in this case the web dispatcher is different. Yeah, so the instance number here is like appended. Yeah?
Right. Yeah.
So this rule makes sure that my inbound on the private IP on the standard SSL port goes to the actual system that I wanted to go. Yeah, so my backend pool, and then you have actually connected those. Yeah. So far, so good. And with that, we are able now to develop typical apps that you would develop in the PaaS environment of SAP and connect them with our S4 backend system. And the very first thing that I did is develop a Node.js app based on the cloud application programming model that SAP has. And I have it here, I think, exactly. Okay. So this one here, and the app is also put on my GitHub repo, so you can actually recreate this whole setup, with the blog post and the artifacts that we put on the GitHub repo yourself to get a feeling and check out what's going on. So if we open now this app, of course, session expired again. Go. So this is the standard overview from the backend services from the cloud application programming model, and I developed against the typical OData service that comes for demo purposes with any subsystem. Yeah, so this is the EPM product demo data set. Yeah, so to say. If we hit now this products link here, you can already see down in my the link that's put there. Yeah. So it's going to put the filter item $top equals 11, so that I don't pull all the hundreds of products. Yeah, so just the top 11 there. And there you go. We get OData for compliant JSON output.
Private link from
Yeah. So that's the foundation. Now we can put this also on an actual UI. Yeah, so something that deserves a good demo case for today. Yeah? And I developed this in UI5, and this goes through the same connection. And should bring this up any moment. I think I had a caching issue there before. That's why I opened it already on this end. Which brings the same or uses the output that we saw before in JSON, but actually puts it on a nice UI. Yeah, and in this case, it's 205 products that are available there. And in here, you can do whatever you want now. Yeah, so you can say I want to search for everything that has a box. Yeah, of course, if I didn't get my time out there, let's see. Let's give this one try before we move on. At this point, Martin Repple is always praying to the demo gods. Huh?
Yeah.
So disable cache. Give it one more try. Okay, there we go. Now let's see. I send my box search here. And this is now filtering. Yeah? So I'm actually talking to my backend system, yeah, and sending it search queries. Yeah. So fully integrated, everything that you would need, that you would expect from this kind of connection. Yeah?
So it's not fake; it's real.
Yeah, I need to prove it now.
Cool.
And this is not a big surprise, actually, yeah, because this is just layer 4 connectivity, right? Private link service, and everything that we did just now happens on the HTTPS layer, yeah? And we're just using this connectivity services here, right? Yeah, so it's not influencing anything that I would do as a developer in business technology platform.
Cool.
And you mentioned now this principal propagation is not yet implemented. So because of that, I still need to have a cloud connector on left side, just because I want to use principal propagation. True or?
No. But it depends on which mechanism. Yeah.
Okay.
If you are referring to the short-lived certificates that the cloud connector like creates for you, then yes. But if we refer to the plain OAuth web service way, then this would work. But I haven't published the post on it yet, and I want to make it like a sound example. Yeah, but technology-wise, it will definitely work. Yeah, we have the same thing going on with other means on the Microsoft side with Power Automate, for instance, yeah, from the Power Platform. So we do the very same thing, and like I said, this is layer 4 connectivity. If the services on the SAP side support this, yeah, then we can do it. Yeah, so it will definitely work. But the content in a nice way like this still needs to be published, but it does work.
So you want to say that on the right side can be Power Platform, and the rest of the story is the same?
Well, we wouldn't talk about private link then, yeah, since it's already part of both the managed Microsoft, yeah. Because here we are exposing this to another party who offers you the managed service, yeah, which is SAP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
And basically,
and this is only available on Azure, I think. Correct?
Exactly. Public beta with SAP together with us. And since we have this joint partnership, yeah, we develop services together, and this is something that we do at the moment exclusively. Yeah?
So basically, if there are SAP PaaS developers and customers running in Azure, I mean, he can just use the best of to have in a secure and fast and easy way to set up the whole stuff, right? To use it. I mean, I'm just thinking behind this. I mean, it's a PaaS services, right, of the Microsoft and SAP as well. I mean, so to say, so the whole not only setup is easier, but there is no maintenance, so to say. I always love to say this, because here we do, if you deploy this SAP Cloud Connector, okay, 2 VMs and proxies here and there and patching and downtime and left and right. And it's operational work continuously, right? Thinking about the high availability, unavailability of something. And here you just have components which are cloud services.
Exactly.
And there is no maintenance behind it. That's value proposition, right? Additional.
Yeah, in some IT departments, they say we don't even want to open a port going out.
Yeah.
And this way you don't need to do that because the private link service takes away that pain. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Martin, if from business technology platform side, from SAP side, I want to consume the paths from Azure side, some. Can I also use the same story?
At the moment,
I'm not going directly on the backend system, that I'm going and consuming some services, but I don't want to go over public endpoint. Can I use the same?
The end goal of this, yes, yeah. But the public beta right now focuses on the private link service, which requires the standard load balancer and the VM as a target. Yeah.
Okay.
So the current scope doesn't support this, but it's definitely part of the ideas and what you would like to do next. Yeah.
Super. Great.
Yeah. When I think standard load balancer, it's zonal redundant. So I mean, here you go. You also HA across the zones as well. I mean, my professional deformation always dream about high availability, right? So
it's good dream, yeah.
When we discuss about any topic, Goran always need to bring this availability,
Of course. I mean, that's I call it my professional deformation, So it always has to do it.
Yeah. And then last teaser for the blog post. We looked at part 1 today, right? So I'm publishing a series, and we already have part 2 out as well. And part 2 talks about one of the very famous services on BTP, which is used by many customers, which is the Cloud Platform Integration Service, which is part of the Integration Suite bundle, where there's also API management and all the things that you would need for typical integration scenarios between SAP's SaaS components like SuccessFactors, C4HANA, etc. Yeah? And the Integration Suite has also, from the past, typical or standard support for the Cloud Connector. So the next thing I did, I looked into it, how would it work with Private Link? And it just does the same way as with the apps. Yeah? So if you look at part 2, as our precious viewers of this podcast, and you're interested in the Integration Suite, there's actually nothing special. Yeah, I describe it in the blog what to configure there, and that's it. Yeah, and then you can also apply your integration services through Private Link.
Cool. So just work out of the box, which is nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think we can close the topic. Anything else, Martin, you would love to mention it?
Nope, I'm all good. Thanks for having me today. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, well, also for us. But I mean, I love it. I love it to see how the things are becoming more cloudized. How more services are standing behind, meaning also less management there, and especially in those PaaS services. So customer can, if they like the SAP part, okay, they can have additional benefit when their SAP systems are running on Azure at the moment, right? Additional security, performance, simplicity, and no management there, right, behind, which is great. Yeah. So Martin, thanks a lot, and we will of course have you later as well. I know you will continue with your blogging passion, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to the next round.
Yeah. Well do it. Thanks a lot. So see you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.